The discovery. The stars stretched endlessly, glittering like shards of crystal against the ink-black void of space. Commander Kalen Voss stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, hands clasped behind his back, eyes locked on the holographic display hovering in the center of the room. Uncharted space lay before them, a graveyard of dead stars, rogue planets, and drifting cosmic debris, but today something different shimmered on the scanners. Something alive. Energy signature detected. Lyra Quinn, Kalen's second-in-command, announced, her voice steady yet tinged with awe. It's enormous, Captain. Nothing like we've ever seen. Kalen's brow furrowed. Enormous how? Is it a planet? A star? Another ship? Lyra shook her head. None of the above. The energy pattern is organic. Highly adaptive. It's alive, Kalen. And it's moving. The word sent a shiver down his spine. Humans had always looked to the stars with wonder, imagining alien worlds, strange civilizations, but the galaxy was not always kind to curiosity. Entire species had been erased because they failed to respect its dangers. And yet, here he was, leaning toward a threat humanity had never encountered, driven by that same relentless curiosity. Prepare a close-range scan, Kalen ordered. Let's see exactly what we're dealing with. The Odyssey inched closer to the anomaly. As the ship crossed into the energy field, the sensors flickered violently. Readings went haywire, and the bridge shook as invisible waves of force rippled through the hull. Crew members clutched consoles and railings, their faces pale. What is it doing? Whispered a young technician, barely audible. Kalen didn't answer immediately. He was studying the display, trying to make sense of the impossible shapes appearing on the holograms, limbs that seemed to stretch and shift, eyes glowing in patterns that were almost intelligent. His mind raced. Humanity had no recorded encounter with anything like this. Not in myth, not in legend, not even in the speculative logs of deep space expeditions. This is the Xylar, Kalen finally said, his voice low and tense. The name felt heavy, almost mythical. Stories whispered across the galaxy spoke of the Xylar as apex predators, creatures so powerful and intelligent that entire civilizations had been wiped out by a single hunt. Legend said the Xylar didn't just kill, they studied, they stalked, and they played with their prey before delivering the final strike. Lyra's eyes widened. Are we seeing one of them? Kalen didn't answer. Words seemed meaningless against the sheer scale of the threat before them. The holographic display pulsed with a rhythm that felt alive, almost sentient. Then, without warning, the void outside the ship shifted, and a shadow emerged from the darkness. It was colossal, the size of a moon. Its form was nightmarish, impossible to comprehend fully, with multiple appendages that twisted and flexed, each tipped with claws sharp enough to tear through a starship like paper. Its eyes glowed with an intelligence that pierced the hull, seeming to read not just their movements, but their very intentions. The Odyssey trembled as the creature brushed past them, testing the human vessel like a curious predator. Alarms blared across the bridge. Shields are at 50% and dropping. Lyra shouted. Kalen gritted his teeth, gripping the railing. Hold steady. Do not provoke it yet. Assess its trajectory. The creature paused, hovering in the void like a living nightmare, studying them. Then, in a motion that made every human on the bridge instinctively flinch, it recoiled and vanished into the shadows, leaving only the faint ripple of residual energy. For a long moment, silence fell across the Odyssey. The crew stared at the empty void outside, hearts pounding, minds struggling to process the encounter. The universe, they realized, had just reminded them of its indifference and its danger. Kalen turned to his crew, voice firm despite the adrenaline surging through him. This was no accident. That creature, it's intelligent. It knows we're here. And if it wanted to destroy us, we'd already be dead. But we've been seen, cataloged, studied. And now humanity has a target on its back. Lyra swallowed hard. What do we do, Captain? Kalen's eyes drifted back to the stars. Somewhere out there, the Xylar waited. The vast emptiness that had once seemed beautiful now felt predatory, every shimmer of starlight a potential threat. And yet, Kalen felt a thrill deep in his chest. Fear was natural. But humanity had something no predator, no matter how terrifying, could anticipate: ingenuity, resilience, unpredictability. We prepare, he said finally. We learn. We fight. Because if we don't, nothing else in this galaxy will ever notice us again. He activated the ship's long-range communications, sending encrypted alerts back to Earth. Reports would stir panic, doubt, and fear, but Kalen didn't care. The truth needed to reach humanity. The apex predator of the galaxy had awakened, and it had noticed them. As the Odyssey navigated away from the anomaly, Kalen reflected on the path ahead. Humanity had always stared at the stars and asked, "What's out there?" Now the answer had arrived, and it was far more terrifying than any fiction could imagine. He turned back to the bridge crew, his voice carrying a rare intensity. "Mark this moment. The universe has just shown us how small we are. But small doesn't mean weak. Not if we refuse to be. We are explorers. We are survivors. And we are human. And that is a force the galaxy has never truly faced." Lyra met his gaze, seeing not just determination but a spark of something fiercer, defiance. The kind that had carried humanity across millennia, from primitive hunters on Earth to masters of the stars. Kalen took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. Somewhere beyond the dark veil of space, the Xylar waited. It was patient, deadly, and terrifying. But humanity had just made a choice. They would not cower. They would not surrender. They would fight. And thus, in the cold, infinite expanse of the galaxy, a war that had been centuries in the making, unknown, unprovoked, and unavoidable, began with a single human decision. The Odyssey surged forward into the void, carrying not just a ship, but the defiant spark of humanity into the unknown. First contact. The Odyssey drifted through the void, the memory of the Xylar encounter fresh in every crew member's mind. The silence of space felt heavier now, as if the darkness itself was watching, waiting. Kalen Voss stood at the bridge's viewport, hands resting lightly on the console. He couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just shifted beneath humanity's feet. "Captain," Lyra Quinn said, her voice tight, "we're picking up multiple signatures ahead. Not one, several. And they're moving fast." Kalen's stomach tightened. "Show me." The holographic display flickered to life. A cluster of massive energy readings streaked across the grid, moving with terrifying coordination. Unlike anything humanity had mapped, these were not random cosmic phenomena, they were alive, hunting. "They're hunting something," Lyra said. Kalen didn't answer. His jaw clenched as he realized the truth. Humanity wasn't just being observed, they were walking into a predator's territory. And now the hunt had begun. "Prepare defensive systems. Shields to maximum. All weapons online," Kalen commanded, his voice steady despite the tension. "But remember, avoid engagement if possible. We need information first." The crew worked in tense silence. Lights flickered as the Odyssey adjusted its course, weaving between asteroids and drifting debris, trying to remain unseen. But the Xylar were not deceived. A shiver ran down Kalen's spine as the first predator emerged from the shadows. It was monstrous, far larger than any human ship. Its sinewy limbs flexed as it hovered in the void, eyes glowing with an intelligence that made every crew member instinctively recoil. The Odyssey's shields flared as the creature's appendage brushed against the hull, testing its resilience. "Hull integrity dropping," a technician yelled. Sparks flew across the bridge as minor systems overloaded. Kalen gritted his teeth. "Divert all power to shields. Evasive maneuvers, now." The Odyssey twisted and spun, narrowly avoiding the Xylar's lethal appendages. But one swipe was enough to tear through an external fuel conduit. Explosions rocked the ship, sending debris spinning into the void. Crew members were thrown from their stations, only to scramble back with grim determination. "They're playing with us," Lyra muttered, her voice trembling. "No," Kalen said quietly. "They're sizing us up. Calculating. Learning. They think they're the hunters, but they haven't met humans yet." Kalen took a deep breath, analyzing the creature's patterns. Unlike other species, the Xylar didn't attack randomly. They studied, adapted, and exploited weaknesses. But Kalen had noticed something: small, subtle behaviors that betrayed overconfidence. "We need to hit it where it won't expect," he said. "Deploy the decoy drones. Make it think we're scattered." A swarm of holographic decoys erupted from the ship, shimmering and flickering as they mimicked the Odyssey's energy signature. The Xylar paused, eyes narrowing, swiping through the illusions. Kalen seized the moment. Reverse thrusters full speed. Let it into the asteroid belt. The ship darted through the dense field of jagged rocks, the Xylar in pursuit. The predators, massive as they were, struggled to navigate the narrow channels. Kalen's heart pounded as the Odyssey weaved with precision only human reflexes could allow. "You've got to be kidding me." Lyra shouted over the alarms as a massive claw swiped past, tearing a chunk from a nearby asteroid. "Keep moving." Kalen barked. "We're not out of this yet." Minutes felt like hours. The Odyssey twisted, ducked, and spiraled, narrowly avoiding death at every turn. And then, in a moment of calculated brilliance, Kalen activated the ship's magnetic grapplers, pulling a massive asteroid into the Predator's path. The Xyler slammed into it with a roar that vibrated through the ship, momentarily stunned. "Now!" Kalen shouted. "Engage warp drive." The Odyssey surged into faster-than-light travel, leaving the stunned Predator cluster behind. Silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the crew's heavy breathing. Lyra leaned against the console, wiping sweat from her brow. "I can't believe we survived that." Kalen nodded, though his mind was already racing. "They're not just beasts. They're intelligent hunters. And now they know humans exist." The weight of the realization settled over the crew. Humanity had walked into a Predator's territory, and survived by the narrowest margin. But the Xyler would remember this. They would adapt. And next time they might not be so forgiving. Kalen turned from the viewport, eyes scanning the weary but determined faces of his crew. "We've learned something today," he said, voice calm but firm. "Humans are not easy prey. We adapt. We fight. And we survive. That's what makes us dangerous." Lyra gave a faint, wry smile. "Dangerous, or suicidal?" Kalen allowed himself a small grin. "Call it human." As the Odyssey jumped to a safer sector, Kalen began drafting reports to Earth, documenting every observation, every tactic, every data point about the Xyler. Humanity's first contact had been terrifying, almost catastrophic, but it had also revealed a truth that no one on Earth would be ready to accept. The galaxy's most terrifying predators were real, and humans had just announced themselves as rivals. Somewhere across the void, the Xyler regrouped. Their glowing eyes scanned the stars, tracking the humans that had survived the first encounter. Patterns shifted. Calculations were made. And a silent promise lingered in the darkness. The hunt had only just begun. Kalen leaned back in his chair, staring at the endless stars beyond the viewport. He knew humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. The Xyler would return. And when they did, humans would be ready. Because humans didn't just survive the impossible. They thrived in it. And now the galaxy had learned a new truth. When humanity fights back, even the apex predators must beware. Rallying humanity. The message from Commander Kalen Voss reached Earth like a thunderclap. Every news channel, every data network, every communication hub was flooded with the report. Humanity had encountered the Xyler, the galaxy's apex predators. And not only that, humans had survived. At first, panic swept across the globe. Markets plunged, emergency alerts flashed across every screen, and governments convened in crisis. The Xyler were legends for a reason. Entire civilizations had been wiped out after a single encounter. Humanity's survival was a miracle, or a disaster waiting to happen. In the United Nations High-Tech Council chamber, representatives argued fiercely. "We cannot risk further contact," shouted Ambassador Rialto of the Terran Federation. "We need to retreat, seal off exploration, and focus on defense." "Retreat," countered Kalen's old mentor, General Mara Lindell, who had been flown in to advise the council. "Do you realize what that means? Giving up space exploration means ceding the stars. The Xyler are intelligent hunters, yes, but humans are survivors. If we show fear, we'll be extinct before we even have a chance to fight back." A murmur ran through the chamber. The word struck a chord. Humanity had survived nuclear wars, environmental collapse, and centuries of interstellar exploration. Fear might slow them, but it would never break them. Kalen stood at the podium, his uniform crisp, voice resonant. "We faced death in the cold void and survived. The Xyler are dangerous, yes, but they are not invincible. They rely on predictability. Humans are not predictable. We adapt, we learn, and we fight. This is not the time to hide. This is the time to unite." Silence followed. Every delegate, every scientist, every military officer weighed the truth in his words. Humanity had a choice: cower or fight. The decision was swift. A coalition of nations and corporations formed a new command, the United Stellar Defense Initiative. Resources flowed into research and military development at an unprecedented pace. Entire industries pivoted toward survival: AI-driven weapons, adaptive shields, experimental propulsion systems, and bioarmor designed to withstand Xyler attacks. In the laboratories of Luna Prime, scientists tested everything from kinetic disruptors to energy-based weapons, hoping to exploit weaknesses in a predator species that had never faced humans before. Engineers and programmers worked around the clock, developing drones and autonomous ships capable of operating under Xyler-level threat. "We don't have the luxury of time," said Dr. Leora Venn, chief scientist of the initiative. Every day we wait, the Xylar learn, they evolve, and the margin for human survival shrinks. We must innovate faster than they can adapt. On the streets of Terra City, ordinary humans reacted in a mix of fear and pride. Children wore holographic patches of the Odyssey, inspired by Kalen and his crew. Citizens volunteered for defense programs, eager to prove that humanity would not cower. Posters emblazoned with slogans like, "We survive," "We adapt," "We fight," became common, a symbol of resilience. Meanwhile, Kalen returned to space, joining elite squads to train for first contact scenarios. Simulations tested the limits of human ingenuity. Ambushes, guerrilla strikes, and psychological warfare against predators that considered themselves supreme hunters. Every mission emphasized one principle: unpredictability was humanity's greatest weapon. "You see, Captain," Lyra Quen said during a briefing, "they think of themselves as gods of the hunt. But humans are chaos. They can't predict us." Kalen smiled faintly. "Chaos is a weapon they'll never understand. That's how we survive. That's how we win." By the time the first mobilization fleet was ready, humanity had achieved a level of preparedness unprecedented in its history. Ships bristled with experimental weapons, soldiers trained in zero-gravity combat, and AI co-pilots calculated maneuvers that no human mind could perform alone. Yet, even in the midst of preparation, a shadow of unease lingered. The Xylar were patient. They did not attack blindly. They observed, studied, and waited for the perfect opportunity. And Kalen knew that the Predator's intelligence meant that every advantage humans gained would be met with a new strategy. But humanity had one advantage that even the Xylar could not predict: relentless determination. In the final moments before deployment, Kalen addressed his fleet. The human crew, scientists, and volunteers stood shoulder to shoulder, their faces a mix of fear, excitement, and resolve. "We don't know what awaits us in the void," Kalen said, voice carrying across the assembled ships. "The Xylar are the galaxy's most feared predators. They have destroyed countless civilizations. But they have never faced humans like us. We adapt, we fight, and we survive. Today we declare that humanity will not be prey. Today we take the first step in proving that no predator, no matter how fearsome, can underestimate the human spirit." The fleet erupted in cheers, a sound that echoed across the void as humanity prepared to take its place among the stars, not just as explorers, but as hunters in a galaxy that had never truly feared them before. And somewhere in the dark corners of uncharted space, the Xylar watched. Their glowing eyes tracked humanity's mobilization, calculating, adapting, preparing. They recognized a new variable in the hunt. And for the first time, the galaxy's deadliest predators knew that the game had changed. Humanity was awake. Humanity was ready. And the galaxy would soon learn that humans were not prey, they were hunters. The first strike. The human fleet drifted through the void, tension thick in the recycled air of every vessel. Commander Kalen Voss stood on the bridge of the flagship Odyssey, watching the stars streak past as the fleet approached the designated hunting grounds. A rogue planet the Xylar had been detected near. "Captain," Lyra Quen said, her voice tight, "sensors are picking up multiple energy spikes, larger than anything we've seen before. And they're converging on the planet. They know we're here." Kalen's jaw tightened. "Then let's make them learn the hard way that humans are not easy prey." The fleet bristled with experimental weapons: kinetic disruptors, plasma turrets, and AI-guided drones capable of independent maneuvering. Soldiers suited in adaptive armor trained relentlessly for zero-gravity engagements. Every element of the human offensive was designed around one principle: surprise and unpredictability. But nothing could truly prepare them for what came next. The first Xylar emerged from the darkness, a towering creature, limbs twisting like living blades, eyes glowing with lethal intelligence. It moved with uncanny precision, faster than anything a human could anticipate. The fleet opened fire, beams slicing through space, but the creature avoided each strike with terrifying agility. "They're faster than simulations predicted," Lyra muttered. Kalen gritted his teeth. "Stay calm. Stick to the plan. Use the terrain, the asteroid belts, the magnetic anomalies. Force them into positions we control." The humans moved with careful coordination, attempting to funnel the Xylar into an ambush. But the predators adapted instantly. Another Xylar appeared, and then another, a coordinated hunting pack that struck with terrifying efficiency. Explosions rocked the fleet as several smaller ships were shredded in moments. The first true lesson of combat was brutal. Human technology was formidable, But the Xylar were smarter, faster, and infinitely adaptable. Kalen realized conventional tactics would not work. He had to think like a predator. He ordered a feint, sending decoy ships in one direction while the main fleet lurked in shadow. The Xylar paused, processing the apparent weakness. Then, with terrifying swiftness, they split, the Alpha moving toward the decoys, the others tracking the hidden fleet. It was now or never. Kalen activated the experimental graviton nets, massive energy fields designed to immobilize the predators. The nets pulsed outward, wrapping around one of the Xylar, but the creature's strength tore through, nearly dragging the Odyssey with it. Shields holding, barely. Lyra shouted. Sparks flew across the bridge as systems overloaded. Kalen's mind raced. Humans were at their limits, but there was one thing the Xylar could not predict: ingenuity under pressure. Prepare the reactive mines, he ordered. Release them on my mark. As the Xylar closed in, massive floating mines ignited in a precise sequence, detonating near the Alpha and knocking it off course. The creature roared, a sound that reverberated through the void, and for a fleeting moment humanity had the upper hand. But the victory was fleeting. Another Xylar surged from the shadows, swiping aside several human ships like toys. Alarms blared. Casualties mounted. The first strike was turning into a slaughter. Kalen felt the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. Lives depended on his decisions. With a deep breath he recalculated, humans could not overpower the Xylar directly, they had to outthink them. Divide and converge, he shouted. Force them into the planetary canyon system. Use the environment to our advantage. The fleet twisted through the treacherous terrain of the rogue planet, luring the Xylar into narrow canyons where their size became a liability. Explosions, plasma blasts, and precise maneuvers created chaos among the predators. Humanity's unpredictability, its ability to adapt mid-battle, began to turn the tide, if only slightly. When the engagement finally ended, the fleet was battered. Ships smoldered, hulls were scarred, and human losses were high. But a critical truth had been proven: humans could survive an encounter with the Xylar. Not just survive, they could fight back. Kalen surveyed the damage reports, his heart heavy with loss but his resolve unbroken. Today we learned, he said, voice steady despite exhaustion. The Xylar are strong. They are smart. They are deadly. But so are we. And next time we will be stronger. Faster. Smarter. Lyra gave him a tired, wry smile. Humanity has a way of surprising the impossible. Kalen nodded. Exactly. And they will learn that humans are not easy prey. Not anywhere in this galaxy. As the fleet limped back to safer space, a silent acknowledgement hung in the void. The first strike had been costly, but humanity had made its mark. The Xylar would not forget. And neither would the humans. In the darkness of space, both predator and prey had learned something vital. The rules had changed. Humanity had entered the game, and for the first time the apex predators knew they had rivals capable of adapting, surviving, and fighting back. Lessons in the hunt. The stars were no longer just points of light. For Commander Kalen Voss and his fleet, each flicker in the void was a potential danger, a clue or a trap. Humanity had survived its first encounter with the Xylar, but survival had come at a steep cost. Ships were damaged, lives lost, and every engagement left scars on both the humans and the predators. Kalen stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, studying the holographic replay of the first strike. The Xylar had adapted faster than any simulation had predicted. Their hunting packs moved with terrifying coordination, each predator anticipating the humans' maneuvers. Yet, within the chaos, Kalen had spotted patterns, small behaviors, repeated movements, and moments of hesitation that could be exploited. We're not just reacting anymore, he said, voice calm but intense. We're learning. And learning is how we win. Lyra Quinn leaned beside him. They're smart, Kalen. Smarter than any predator we've encountered. But nothing is perfect. We just need to find the cracks. And so humanity began the meticulous work of adaptation. Fleets no longer moved blindly. Every mission was a learning exercise. Drones mapped Xylar patrol patterns. AI-driven simulations predicted likely attack strategies. Human squads ran maneuvers in zero-gravity training zones designed to mirror the environmental hazards of the systems where the Xylar hunted. Kalen personally led scouting parties, venturing close to Xylar territories in unarmed probes, observing without engaging. Every movement of the predators was catalogued. The way their eyes adjusted to shadows, the rhythm of their limbs, the signals between pack members. They're thinking several moves ahead, Kalen muttered during one briefing. We have to think 10 moves ahead. Predict their predictions. And then break them. The breakthrough came when Dr. Leora Venn, the chief scientist, noticed a subtle anomaly. Xylar were apex predators, yes, but their intelligence came with limitations. They relied heavily on energy detection, hunting by sensing the heat and movement of prey. They underestimated camouflage, diversion, and unpredictability. "That's our angle," Dr. Venn said, her eyes bright with excitement. "We make ourselves chaotic, unpredictable. Use the environment in ways they won't expect. Humans are not just hunters, they can be ghosts, traps, and storms all at once." Kalen smiled faintly. "Then that's what we'll be. A storm they can't anticipate." The next missions put these lessons into practice. Human teams deployed small strike ships, decoys, and automated traps. They used gravity wells, asteroid belts, and even collapsing star remnants to channel and confuse the Xylar. Ambushes were no longer reckless. They were calculated, precise, and designed to minimize human loss while maximizing learning. In one operation near the shattered system of Erinder, Kalen watched from a command pod as a pack of Xylar pursued a squadron of drones. Using carefully timed energy pulses, the humans created the illusion of fleeing ships, luring the predators into a narrow canyon. Their hidden turrets fired synchronized bursts, stunning two of the Xylar temporarily and allowing the fleet to escape without a single human casualty. "Did you see that?" Lyra asked, voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. "We just outsmarted them." Kalen nodded, but his mind was already moving forward. "Yes, but this is just one skirmish. They will learn. And next time they will anticipate it. That's why we adapt again. And again. Humanity doesn't survive by being predictable." Every mission reinforced a core truth: humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They could not rely on sheer power or speed. But they had something the Xylar could never truly master: creativity, intuition, and the willingness to take risks the predators could not foresee. Over time, stories of these engagements spread across the fleet. The crews began to see themselves not merely as soldiers or explorers, but as humans capable of standing against the apex predators of the galaxy. Confidence grew, tempered by respect for the danger they faced. Kalen looked at his crew during a debriefing. "This is not just survival. This is evolution. Every encounter makes us sharper, faster, smarter. The Xylar think they are supreme hunters. But we are learning to become the unpredictable variable. That is our edge. That is humanity's strength." Lyra smiled, finally allowing herself a trace of pride. "So the galaxy's deadliest predators have just met a new kind of hunter." Kalen's eyes glinted with determination. "Not just a hunter. We are a force they've never faced. And when the next strike comes, they will see the true power of human ingenuity." As the fleet prepared for its next operation, a silent understanding settled over everyone aboard. The Xylar were learning, but so were humans. Every battle, every observation, every calculated risk sharpened humanity's edge. The galaxy's apex predators had underestimated one simple truth: humans adapt. Humans endure. And humans, when cornered, become something no predator can predict. The hunt had begun. And this time humanity was not prey. They were students of the hunt, ready to turn the lessons of survival into strategies of victory. In the darkness of space, the Xylar observed, unaware that the species they had dismissed as fragile was evolving into something far more dangerous than they could imagine. And Commander Kalen Voss smiled, knowing that humanity's first lesson had been learned. In the galaxy's deadliest game, humans were not just players, they were becoming hunters. The apex clash. The shattered asteroid system of Vera Prime stretched endlessly, jagged rocks spinning silently in the void. Commander Kalen Voss stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, his hands gripping the console, eyes fixed on the holographic display. The Xylar Alpha had been tracked here, a colossal predator larger than any spaceship, moving with terrifying intelligence. "This is it," Lyra Quen said, her voice tight. "Everything we've trained for, every lesson we've learned, comes down to this." Kalen didn't respond immediately. His mind ran through every simulation, every prior encounter. They had faced the Xylar before, but never the Alpha. This creature was the apex of its species. Faster, smarter, deadlier. Entire fleets of lesser civilizations had been obliterated by a single encounter. Humanity was about to test its limits. "Deploy all strike ships and drones," Kalen ordered. "This will be a coordinated engagement. Every move counts. Failure is not an option." The human fleet moved like a single organism, weaving between massive asteroids, taking advantage of gravitational fields to confuse the predator. Mines detonated in precise sequences, plasma turrets fired calculated bursts, and drones executed feints designed to mislead the Alpha. The Xylar Alpha appeared, emerging from the shadows like a nightmare-given form. Its limbs twisted in impossible angles, eyes glowing with lethal intelligence, scanning the humans with predatory focus. The creature's roar echoed through the void, not sound but an energy pulse that rattled ship hulls. "Steady," Kalen said, voice low. "We've survived before. We adapt, we endure. We fight." The Alpha struck first, swiping through the asteroid field, scattering ships like debris. The Odyssey shuddered as its shields flared against the impact. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "They're faster than predicted. Evasive maneuvers now." Kalen's eyes narrowed. "Remember what we've learned. Predict their predictions. Use chaos to our advantage. Humans are not predictable." The fleet responded with perfect coordination. Drones created illusions of fleeing ships while the main force slipped into ambush positions. Mines detonated in gravitational traps, forcing the Alpha to navigate narrow canyons of floating asteroids. Its enormous bulk made these maneuvers slow and vulnerable, a rare advantage humans had fought hard to create. Kalen personally piloted the Odyssey, weaving between debris and predator, luring the Alpha into a preset trap. Turrets fired in precise bursts, targeting neural clusters identified by prior research. The Alpha roared in pain, stunned but not defeated. "They learn fast," Lyra muttered. "But so do we." Human ingenuity reached its peak. AI drones created decoy swarms that mimicked the Alpha's own energy patterns, confusing the creature and making it hesitate. Humans struck from multiple angles simultaneously, coordinated by Kalen's tactical mind. Every attack was calculated, every maneuver a test of survival instinct against superior strength. The Alpha retaliated with brutal force, destroying smaller ships and sending energy pulses that rattled shields. The battle raged across the asteroid system, explosions lighting the void like fireworks. Human losses were heavy, but each sacrifice bought the fleet vital moments to adapt, learn, and counterattack. Finally, Kalen saw the opening. The Alpha had become overconfident, focusing on the Odyssey while smaller flanking ships circled its blind spots. Using a combination of graviton nets, plasma disruptors, and a precisely timed asteroid collision, the humans trapped the Alpha momentarily. "Now!" Kalen shouted. Energy beams fired in unison from every ship. The Alpha screamed, an echo of pure rage and pain, as the coordinated assault struck its neural clusters. The creature thrashed violently, tearing through the asteroid field, but it was clear the humans had gained the upper hand. For the first time, the Xylar Alpha recoiled, not retreating entirely, but acknowledging a predator it could not immediately overcome. Humanity had not killed it, but they had survived, fought, and inflicted damage. They had proven themselves. The fleet limped from the battle, battered but alive. The void was silent once more, save for the hum of damaged engines and the quiet sobs of relief. Kalen stood at the bridge, surveying the aftermath. Lyra turned to him, eyes shining. "We did it. We survived, against the Alpha." Kalen's expression was grave but resolute. "Survived, yes. But more importantly, we proved that humans are not just prey. We adapt, we endure, we fight, and even the galaxy's deadliest predators have to respect that." Somewhere in the darkness, the Xylar Alpha withdrew, its glowing eyes dimming but never forgetting. Humanity had marked its place in the galaxy's hierarchy of hunters and prey. The rules had changed. Apex predators had met humans, and for the first time they had been challenged. Kalen turned back to his fleet, voice carrying across the bridge. "Remember this moment. We faced what should have been impossible, and we survived. Humanity has earned its place in the stars. But the hunt is far from over. We will get stronger, smarter, faster. And one day we will be unstoppable." In the cold, infinite expanse of space, humanity had won not by sheer power, but by ingenuity, courage, and the unyielding spirit that defined them. The galaxy had learned a new truth: humans were hunters now. And predators, no matter how mighty, would never underestimate them again. Humanity's legacy. The void of space stretched endlessly before the Odyssey, now battered, scarred, and brimming with the hum of engines that had survived impossible odds. Commander Kalen Voss stood on the bridge, watching distant stars twinkle through the shattered asteroid fields, thinking about everything humanity had endured. The battles against the Xylar had tested every limit, physical, mental, and emotional. And yet, humans were still here. Lyra Quen, standing beside him, broke the silence. "They're gone, for now. The Xylar Alpha and its pack have retreated." Kalen nodded, eyes focused on the darkness beyond. Retreated, yes, but not defeated. They will remember us. And so will the rest of the galaxy. Humanity had paid a heavy price. Fleets were depleted, countless ships were lost, and brave souls had been sacrificed in the fight against the apex predators. But the lessons learned were invaluable. Humans had survived the unimaginable, adapted to the impossible, and emerged stronger. On Earth, the news spread quickly. Humanity's survival against the Xyler became legend within days. People looked to the stars not with fear but with pride. Across the globe, children trained in zero-gravity simulators, aspiring to become explorers, engineers, and warriors. The United Stellar Defense Initiative grew stronger, more coordinated, and more determined. Humanity had discovered something vital. They were no longer just wanderers in the galaxy, they were hunters, defenders, and survivors. Kalen addressed the fleet one final time before returning to Earth. His voice echoed through communication channels and deep into the hearts of every crew member and soldier who had faced the Xyler. "We faced what many thought impossible," he said. "We were tested by creatures that the galaxy feared. And yet we endured. We adapted. We fought. Not because we were the strongest but because we refused to yield. Humanity has proven that courage, ingenuity, and the spirit to survive are forces even the deadliest predators cannot ignore." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "We've changed, Kalen. Humanity has changed. The Xyler will think twice before coming back." Kalen smiled faintly. "Yes. But change is only the beginning. We will not stop here. The galaxy is vast, full of unknown dangers, and unknown wonders. And now we have the strength to meet them. Humanity has earned its place among the stars, not as prey but as a species that fights, survives, and thrives." The crew of the Odyssey and the fleets that remained returned to Earth in triumph, bearing both grief and pride. Monuments were raised to honor the fallen, and history books would record the bravery, sacrifice, and ingenuity that had allowed humans to stand against the galaxy's most terrifying predators. Somewhere beyond the known star systems, the Xyler Alpha and its pack lurked in the shadows, wary and calculating. They had encountered a species that did not simply flee, did not simply survive. They adapted, strategized, and struck back. And the galaxy itself had taken notice. Kalen gazed out at the stars one last time before stepping off the bridge. He knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had survived the first great challenge of the cosmos, but countless unknown threats awaited. Yet he felt no fear. Humans had proven time and again that even against the impossible, they endured. As the sun rose over Earth, casting golden light across the planet's oceans and mountains, a new era dawned. Humanity had fought the apex predators of the galaxy and survived. They were scarred, wiser, and stronger, but most importantly, they were no longer the hunted. The legacy of survival, ingenuity, and courage would echo across the cosmos, a warning and a promise. Humanity fights. Humanity survives. Humanity conquers. And the galaxy would never forget.